So this is the strategic planning playbook that we are going to be referencing. There are going to be some slides, and I will tell you what the playbook slides are so you can just follow along. And again, this goes pretty fast, but I'm hoping you get great value out of it. This is all about strategic planning that actually works for you. Most people think they might have a strategic plan or they might have an idea. But if you've got a strategic plan, it's important that everybody in the organization knows what that strategic plan is. And that strategic plan should be a lot of things, but mostly it needs to be viable, it needs to be achievable, and it needs to be forward-looking, forward-focused. Many people take the plan that got them here, the thing that worked 10 years ago, and they say, well, we'll just keep doing that. Folks, I don't think you can do that anymore. I think right now we've got to be very forward focused and forward looking. And it's worried me lately, the last few years, especially it just seems since COVID, people got a little lazy with their strategic plan, or maybe it was just uncertainty playing into the issues, but they just took their annual budget and they said, it would be nice if we could increase our revenue or our profits and grow a little bit. And here's a spreadsheet, and maybe we'll have a PowerPoint on growth. And you've all seen the cartoons on this, the PowerPoint that shows growth. That's not really strategic planning, folks. That's just thinking dressed up. So the reality, I think, of strategic planning today is on the right-hand side of this slide. It's not just, here's our budget, let's work within our budget to do what we've always done. No. This, I think, has to be more deliberate, more data-driven, and better decisions. And this is why I think leadership is tougher than it's ever been, because the decisions are more critical and the risks have never been higher. And right now, we have got to make sure that our people, our purpose, our profits, and our processes are aligned, instead of just having sales go off in one direction and management go in another direction and marketing go in another direction and ops not knowing what everybody else is doing. We also need to make sure we've got different time horizons. Now, I love time bites. I like a day, a week, a month, a quarter. I love a 90-day plan. I love all those things. But that has to work for you. You've got to figure out what's going to work best for you, for your time horizons and milestones. And then I want short-term tactics that are helping out your long-term objectives. And we want to make sure that everybody is clear on that. And then, of course, we do want to measure things. And how most of us measure things is, do we have the business we want? And right now, I think the future, 2026 and beyond, again, things have never moved as fast as they are now. And the scary thing is, right now, this is the slowest it's going to be moving. Things are just going to continue to accelerate. So we've got to figure out what that complexity looks like and look at what's going to drive our competitive as well as our comparative advantage. Now, remember, your comparative advantage is what you can do better at a lower cost. Your competitive advantage is what you're better at. So let's say assembling a computer. Somebody who does this all day long, maybe they charge $200 an hour, they can assemble your computer, get it all set up, all that. Maybe that's their competitive advantage. But the comparative advantage is, maybe you get your 16-year-old son to do it for you because it might take them a little longer, but they're going to be basically free. So that's the difference. Where are we better, both better overall, and then where are we better on a cost basis? So step number 1, clarify the mission, vision, goals, and these are your outcomes, of course. So the mission is what we do. We play baseball. The vision is we're going to the World Series. That vision needs to be a little bit aspirational, a little bit exciting, maybe a little bit scary, but it needs to give us something to shoot for. The mission is what we do, why we are here. And then the goals are what we're going to do to get there. And where a lot of people, I think, have issues is what they do is they simply worry so much about the goals and the tactics that they forget to look at the big picture. So in your workbook, in the workbook that you're getting today, this is a strategic planning playbook or workbook. And you can't really see this here, but it will ask you to fill out your mission statement. What do we do? Now, here's a cheat for you. Let's say you've got kind of an old mission statement and you've revised some things. Let's say you're a bakery and you've recently decided to go into specialty cupcakes. Is that in your mission statement? It may not be. Here's the big time saver on that. Take your current mission statement, put it into chat, say, please revise my mission statement to figure out better what it is we do with our new cupcake designs, and have chat give you 10 different ideas on what your mission statement could be. Why do you do what you do? What do you do? And then your vision statement is, how could we be even better moving into the future? And again, I love using technology. Use chat to do this, and then talk to your team about that and see what that looks like. And then map out the core objectives. In order to do that, and again, I would not start from scratch on this. Use chat. Say, in order for me to be better in 2026 and beyond, here are some of my core objectives. What is a good metric for that? What's a good deadline for that? And who in my organization might be the owner of that? Again, this is your workbook. I love specificity in goal setting. And the reason for that is something I can cross off my to-do list is specific. If I say, I want to get healthier in 2026, getting healthier is a great goal in 2026, but that's an idea. That's not a specific. What is specific is, and it's on my list, so I'll share it with you because I'm all about the accountability, is drink 100 ounces of water a day, get 100 grams of protein a day, and eat a green vegetable a day. And frankly, when you're on the road, that is all a lot harder than it sounds. But I know that specific wise, if I can cross it off my to-do list, that is specific enough. That is a tactic. That's something I can do. So there's power in being really specific. It's just saying get healthier. I can be like, yeah, I'll think about healthy thinking and eating. Does that count? Well, a good mindset always helps, but that's not necessarily going to move what the number is on the scale. So a metric might be the scale, but just a weight isn't the best metric. Maybe I'm very specific about my protein content, my water absorption rate, my visceral fat numbers, all those other things that these fancy schmancy scales measure nowadays. Specificity matters when you're setting these goals. So instead of just we want to grow our revenue. Okay, everybody sits around the table and says, yeah, let's make more revenue. Hang on. Revenue is just your quantity times your price. All you got to do is increase one of those to increase revenue, but that doesn't necessarily mean you're increasing profits. I have an article coming out, I think in 3 weeks, on your break-even points and why it's really important to understand things like your total costs, your total fixed costs, your total variable costs, and your total revenue. And again, that space where your total revenue exceeds your total cost is your profitability. But sometimes people cut those very thinly, and that means your profit margins are not where you think they should be. My example on that is there was a really great restaurant that everybody in my neighborhood just loved. Super small, like 10 tables. Maybe it only sat 25 people, 30 people max. And it was always crowded. The prices were great. The whole family that owned the restaurant worked there. Everybody loved them. The problem was they decided to expand. When the space next to them became open, they expanded. Now they had 3 times the space they had before. So now they have 3 times the tables, which means they now have to have staff that's going to cover even more. The family can't just cover all the work involved. So now they've got payroll. Now they needed an HR manager. Now the prices in the restaurant went up. And all of a sudden, did they have a full restaurant all the time? No, they didn't. They still only had those 25, 30 people who were their regulars. Just having more space and the opportunity to grow more revenue didn't translate into either more revenue or more profitability. So we've got to make sure that when we grow revenue, we're very specific on what it is we want and how that relates to our profitability goals. And then let's improve customer satisfaction. Yes, customer satisfaction. Okay, a specific goal might be achieve our customer happiness score of at least 82 with a 90% response rate. We need to be more innovative. What does that mean? It means asking your customers what might be good for them. And keep in mind, a lot of customers don't know. They know when they're happy, but they don't necessarily know what makes them unhappy unless they are experts in your field and what you deliver. If you're somebody who installs roofing all the time and you hired somebody else to install your roof, think of how critical you would be of that other person. You have insights that a lot of your customers don't have. You may not know exactly what makes you happy, but you certainly know what makes you unhappy. So we need to be more innovative. And that means maybe doing customer interviews, maybe doing focus groups, maybe doing surveys, maybe just picking up the phone and calling your customers. And then we should expand our market presence. What does that mean? Is this spray and pray marketing? Is this targeted visibility in very specific niches or niches, however you want to say that? What does that actually look like? So I want to make sure that when you write out your goals, again, in the spreadsheet, that they are specific. So step 2, conduct a full environmental analysis. So a lot of people are familiar with the SWOT analysis. That's your strengths, your weaknesses, your opportunities, and your threats. Now, this is based on facts and data, not feelings or assumptions or anecdotes. This is a very brutally honest assessment. Where are you and your team and your organization? 3 different things. Where are you strong? Where are you weak? Where are there opportunities? And what could threaten your organization, your profitability, your revenues, your marketing, whatever that looks like. And then we're going to do a pestle analysis. Now, this is where a lot of people simply don't. Pestle is political, economic, social, technological, legal, and environmental. And this shapes your competitive landscape and your market conditions. Pestle analysis, lots of people don't do this. And then the big part of that, of course, coming from me, and you know it's coming from me because I'm an economist, is that economic forecasting. What do your future consumer spending patterns look like? Inflation trends, what's going to happen this year? So I'll let you in on that. Inflation-wise, we are looking at about a 2.8% growth rate in the United States. Our interest rates will likely come down a little bit. What does that look like for your business? It means that your loans are going to be a little bit cheaper. Housing rates of sales will increase as interest rates go down. And then demographic changes. It was very interesting to me that LinkedIn just came out with they came out with the top 25 jobs for the new year. And then U-Haul came out with a survey on where people are moving. So these are demographic changes. Not surprisingly, people are moving to Texas, North Carolina, South Carolina, Florida. There's a whole list of them. And when we look at the demographic changes, if we are a business in those areas, that's good for us because it gives us more opportunities to hire people. If we are a retiree, we may not like the additional people who are coming into our state. So it all depends on your perspective and what you're looking at. But the economic forecasting, of course, is real, and we need to be paying attention to what that looks like for our organization. So understanding the SWOT, the facts over the feelings. Internal assessment. I think a lot of you are familiar with this, but I want to say it anyway because it is a page in the workbook, and I want to make sure you're super clear on this. So the internal assessment, the strengths. What competitive advantages do we actually possess? Where are we better? Not necessarily lower priced, but where are we better? And then what do we do better than our competitors? And then why are we unique, or what capabilities set us apart? So, for example, when I talk to people, they say, why are you unique? We're all unicorns in some ways. So I love the idea that I can say, well, I'm a full-fledged card-carrying, crystal ball-toting economist. And as a leadership expert, I combine the two for this umbrella of what has to happen next. And that includes the strategies and the forecasting and the succession. Ask your friends where you're better. Ask your customers where you're better. Ask folks around you. You say, if you had to describe where I'm better, what would you say? And if that doesn't work, again, go into Gemini or chat and ask them, say, here's where I am. Where are we better? Where are we strong? And then weaknesses. Where are we genuinely vulnerable? I've got a business right now that has a business loan of 10%, and I think that makes them very vulnerable because it's a big loan. What capabilities are we missing? Is this in personnel? Is it in technology? Is it in old systems? Is it in software? Is it in machinery? What does that look like? And then what do our competitors do better than we do? Somebody's always going to do something better than us. That's okay. It's just good to know what that is. And keep in mind, folks, we don't have to be better than everybody in everything. We just have to be better in the things that we're better in. And then we just need to let people know that. So external environments, what opportunities are out there for us? What are some market trends we can capitalize on? Okay, so I don't know if you've heard this, but I was listening to a radio show and they said that there are food trends coming in for the new year. And I didn't know that food trends was a thing because, well, I don't run restaurants, but I like to eat. And I think that I'm a pretty good gauge of what I like. So, I was interested to hear what the food trends were. So the food trends, somebody said it's going to be more cabbage in the new year. All right, I'm a big fan of cabbage, but I didn't think that was a thing. And then they said more black sesame seeds. Okay, black sesame seeds. I like those too. Is this a trend? I don't know. And then there's something that we're supposed to be putting in coffee, and I have no idea. So these are market trends. Are these trends that we need to pay attention to? Folks, some of them we don't. There's style trends, there are fashion trends you do not need to pay attention to. But if they're market trends that impact our business, we need to pay attention. And then what unmet customer needs are existing? And again, our customers don't always know what it is they need or want. They know they want something. They know they want something better. They know they want something new. They know they want something innovative, but they may not know what it is until we tell them. Now, this is where I think a lot of your competitors are failing. And that is they have sales teams that are not communicating enough with the customers. So if you've got a solution for the customer and you're not telling them what your solution is, then you're kind of doing your customers a disservice. And this is where I see a lot of people struggling. Their sales teams will contact people one time, maybe twice, and that's it. In the olden days, folks, we had to contact people 3 to 7 times before there would be a buy. And now, folks, we have to contact people 15 times in order for them to make the commitment for a buy. And that shift in sales, that shift in contact is partly because right now the marketplace is very, very crowded. And because the marketplace is crowded, if your sales teams are not touching 15 times, that's a failure. And again, in the olden days, 3 to 5 touches, maybe 7, that was enough. And most salespeople stop after one contact, which tells me there's a lot of opportunity out there. And then threats. What external forces could harm our business? Folks, COVID, big external shock. It shocked everybody's business. It shocked the globe. It shocked the planet. It shocked everybody. An external threat. Can you do anything about that? No. Do you have a plan in place, the what ifs? You can. What are the chances of that happening again? We don't know. But now we know what to do if it happens again. And what are our competitors doing better? If we look around and say, wow, that's a restaurant that's doing better than me, go have a meal there. Figure out what they're doing better. Is their service better? Is their wine offering better? Is their food better? Is it healthier? Is there a twist on it that you just don't know? And then what regulatory or economic risks are going into the future? And this is something people just don't think about. What if the stock market goes down by 10%? Is that going to derail your 401ks, your retirements, your people? Are people going to lose some kind of confidence in what it is you do? So this is a SWOT analysis. And again, SWOT is your strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. This is what it looks like in the workbook, and there's a place for fill in the blank. And then the PESTLE, your external radar system. So the PESTLE is, and again, this is not a political conversation. We just have to be aware of how politics impact us. And if you've got a restaurant, you say, well, politics don't really influence me. They may not, but they may influence other things around you or other things that govern your business. So government stability, trade policies, folks. I have been doing so many conversations lately about tariffs and trade, and I love all those conversations because it tells me that people are paying attention to what's going on economically. Am I excited about them? Excited, maybe in a good way. Oh, I worry about a lot of things, but we have to know what's going on. Tax regulations, labor laws, and the political climate and how it affects business operations, and then economic issues. As I mentioned, what's going to happen with interest rates, inflation, exchange rates, economic growth patterns, and consumer purchasing power trends. Interesting right now, consumer confidence, and this is measured by the University of Michigan. They are the official people who do the measuring of consumer sentiment. It's down. It's actually low, but it has not stopped the spending. Interestingly enough, we thought that we would see a decrease in consumer spending over the holidays and into January because the consumer sentiment numbers were a little low, but we didn't see that happen. People still continued to spend. So partly that's the Santa Claus effect, which I call it the Santa Claus effect. I don't know if anybody else does, but I'm thinking it's going to catch on, the Santa Claus effect, that even when people are feeling a little bit down about the economy, they still want to feel good about themselves. And part of that translates by their buying behavior. And then social issues. What demographics, what cultural attitudes, what lifestyle changes, education levels, and shifting consumer values and expectations are present that we need to pay attention to? So I was at a session last week, and one of the attendees said, "Oh, I just love the vibe of this place." And I said, "Well, can you define vibe to me?" And she says, "No, it's just how it makes me feel." And I said, "Well, what goes into that?" And she couldn't actually describe that. But if I said the vibe of this restaurant or the vibe of this hotel is very modern, you would know what I meant, even if you couldn't articulate that. So that's what I'm talking about when we talk about the lifestyle changes, the education levels, the cultural attitudes, and those shifting consumer values. We know that we are seeing a trend toward more environmentally friendly, say, packaging. That's under the environmental aspect. And how is that being driven by social values and mores? So we say we want more environmental protection. We want things like less pollution, less plastic, even though our use of plastics has doubled since 2008. So sometimes what's going on socially doesn't directly translate into our actions. And then technology. Again, folks, you're going to hear it again all year long this year: automation, AI, digital transformation, research and development activity, and emerging technologies are going to disrupt your industry. And if it's not already, and it is, it's disrupting your industry. I've got a company, S&P 500, 400 marketing people. 2 years ago, they are down to 4 because they're using AI for all of that now. My big concern about relying on technology, and I love technology. I've encouraged you to use technology in this program, but my concern about technology is the over-reliance on technology. We still need people to think. We still need people to look strategically. We still need people to plan. Technology is not a substitution for mentorship, for good leadership, for strong leadership, and for good decisions. And having said that, I'm going to have some programs on technology dealing with very specific challenges, and I will let you know when those come out. Legal issues. As part of the pestle system, our industry regulations, employment laws, tax changes, consumer protections, intellectual property compliance requirements are all part of what we have to pay attention to. I hope you are talking to your financial planners about, hey, do you know the new rates for what you can contribute to IRAs are for this year? By the way, it's up to $8,600. What's going on with your lawyers? Hey, are there any things on the radar that we need to pay attention to? That you're talking to your tax advisors? Are there any tax implications that we need to know moving into the year? And then the E in pestle, the environmental, as I touched on. People are worried about the climate. They're worried about sustainability issues, carbon footprints, environmental regulations, and what that's going to look like. So this is the external radar system. To map this out, I would recommend using this worksheet and saying things like, okay, so politically, and you can expand the fields in the workbook. If you keep typing, it will continue to type with you. Politically, what's the good, the bad, the ugly, but what is most likely to impact us, and do that for each of these pestles. And then the economic outlook. As you know, I love the economics, and so I'm going to talk about that. The economic forecasting, what this looks like for consumer spending in the first quarter and second quarter. We know that interest rates are going to affect borrowing in mostly summer. I don't foresee a whole lot of movement going on before May when we're going to get a new Federal Reserve chairman, but this is going to affect our capital investment decisions and our customer financing for things that we're familiar with, such as housing and autos. And then the baby boomers are, by 2030, the big challenge in 2030 is all the baby boomers will be 65 years old. That is the big challenge of 2030. There's no other magical potion going on. There's not going to be a meteorite. There's not going to be anything like that. But we need to be preparing for the demographic shift as our baby boomers retire, and we have a significant knowledge gap with the folks coming up behind them. And here's just on what I'm seeing, the tea leaves that I'm seeing right now for economic forecasting is we're seeing the baby boomers retire. I'm a Gen Xer, and the Gen Xers, because the baby boomers, a lot of them are still working. A lot of the Gen Xers are saying, you know what, peace out. And they're retiring before the baby boomers. The Gen Xers are retiring before the baby boomers. And all of a sudden, the workplace is looking around going, wait a second. If we don't have baby boomers and we don't have the Gen Xers, we've got millennials who we know they're going to take over the world because they are the largest demographic, but we have not been matriculating them in the leadership positions that we should, and we really need to be doing that. And then there's the Gen Zers, and we thought, well, we don't need the Gen Zers because we've got AI. Well, hang on, who's going to be running this company in 10 or 15 or 20 years? And that is a big issue. This workforce shrinkage is real. The jobs numbers came out. By the way, we still have over 7 million unfilled jobs right now in the United States. And this is a concern. Okay, step 3, define your strategic pillars. Now, your strategic pillars may be different from someone else's. So I just want to show you what those might look like. Here's some discussion prompts on the economic issues, and then the demographic shifts, and then the technological issues. And as we go to your strategic pillars, pay attention to what is going to make the most sense for you. And maybe you've already got these defined. The market expansion and brand growth. Are you needing to rebrand? Do you need to refresh your website? Do you need to refresh your products? What does that look like? Your customer experience and the retention of your customers. What matters? Loyalty programs are very powerful when done right. When done poorly, they make people run from you. All of the airlines and the hotels right now, I know, are struggling with their loyalty programs. I would love to talk to all of them about their loyalty programs, and I would call it the good, the bad, and the ugly, because I'm part of all of those, and I know what is working for people and what is not, and I desperately wish somebody from those organizations were in the online forums where people are talking about what they love and what they hate about these loyalty programs, because to me, it is solid gold for those organizations. Another pillar, of course, is your operational excellence and efficiency. How are you optimizing, reducing your costs, improving your quality, and making sure that you are delivering what you want to deliver when you say you can deliver it? Boom, that's what people want. And your innovation and technological integration, again, how are you integrating technology? And it may be a warehouse issue. It may be something that you are doing in product development. It may be testing, whatever. And then your leadership development and succession. And this is the part that I am going to be I'm going to be doing a whole nother session on this, folks, in second quarter. And that is this knowledge gap of leadership development and succession. This, to me, is the big crisis going into businesses moving forward. And that is the talent pipeline. We are not developing the skills people need adequately enough for them to assume the greater roles and responsibilities needed for when those people above them start to move out. That knowledge transfer is just not happening, and the organizational capability building isn't there. So how do we make the pillars actionable? So once you identify your pillars, and I like to literally craft them as pillars, then assign executive ownership. Everybody needs some kind of champion for that pillar. Otherwise, it gets ignored, and then nothing happens. And then define those measurable outcomes, know what your KPIs are, figure out some timelines, allocate the resources, and then create the accountability systems. How do you do this? Here's some ways you might want to think about this. Choose each one of these, and it might be things like your market expansion, your customer experience, whatever that is, and it's in the workbook for you. And then step 4, and then we will slow down and take a few questions. Build your marketing strategy around the buyer journey. Folks, the people buying your products, it might be you, but you're not the focus. It's got to be on your buyer, your client, your customer. And it's got to be around where they somehow stop the buying process. If you've ever shopped online and you see a product online and you say, oh, I really want that. And so you click in and go, okay, I want that. I fill out the form. I've selected my product. I've selected my size. I've selected the variant of whatever it is, the color, the size, whatever you're buying. And then all of a sudden it gets to the information and your computer's going to automatically fill that out, but maybe you want it shipped to your mom instead of you. And then it doesn't let you do that. It doesn't let you change the shipping versus the buying address or something dumb. Something in the technology makes it hard for the buyer to complete the buy. And you're like, forget it. I'll just go to the grocery store and grab it for mom later. And you exit out of it. The big question I always ask is, where is the buyer getting stuck in the buy? What is stopping them from making the buy? Is it because the technology is causing them to get out of the system before they make the buy? Is it because for some reason the right product didn't pop up? So I was going to buy something the other day and I forget what it was, but the price on it was advertised as like $49. And then when I clicked on it, it popped up to $79. Okay, hang on. I kind of felt a little bait and switch. And I went back and sure enough, the first ad said $49. So even though I liked it, and if I'd seen it at $79, maybe I would have bought it. But when they advertised it at $49 and then they bumped it up to $79, I suddenly felt cheated. I felt like it was bait and switch, so I didn't buy it. Now, if I was the person responsible for that product sale, I would like to know that somebody like me was somehow either given the wrong price when they got to the checkout, or that something in the system was causing it to revert back to a different price. I would really want to know that. But yet there was no place in the system for me to say, hey, the reason I didn't make this buy is because of this bait and switch. This is what I mean when I say build your marketing strategy around the buyer journey. The buyer knows that they have an issue and they are doing some research. And then they're looking for you to solve that problem, and maybe your products are solving that problem. And then they've made the decision and they've made the commitment to purchase. But did they actually purchase? What happens in there between the purchase and the buy button? And then how do you keep them? So that buy aspect to me is critical. And then, and we're going to stop after this, define your ICP, your ideal customer profile. Now, my friend Mark Hunter, the sales hunter, in his books on high prospect selling and integrity selling, he talks about the ideal customer profile a lot. Critical questions to ask. Who are we targeting and how are we being very precise? I was just contacted very recently about somebody who says, hey, do you want to get on national media? Well, national media is great, but is that really a focused target customer for me? Is everybody. Everybody is not necessarily your ideal customer. So who are we targeting with precisions? And who specifically is talking to them, or where are their pain points and what do they need right now and how do they prefer to buy and what objections do we need to overcome and who do we not need to go after? So for some of my customers, they think everyone is their target market. Everyone is not your target market. So again, back to how we're going to do this in our market channeling. If you're going to develop your marketing plan, and there's a worksheet in the workbook for you on this, you probably have an email marketing plan. You probably have a social media plan. You probably have a content marketing plan, and maybe you're doing some paid advertising. My big tweak on this one is if you are paying for advertising, you absolutely 100% have to know that it was worth it, that ROI was there, and that you can attribute that to that paid advertising. Because a lot of people are doing paid advertising because they've always done it in the same places. They're like, well, we always have that billboard. We always have that radio spot. We always have that ad in the magazine. If it is not generating business for you, it is not keeping you top of mind, you probably shouldn't be doing it. Okay, folks. So I am going to stop sharing right now. Do I have another page? There's my marketing strategic map that is in that workbook for you that identifies your ideal customer profile. It asks you to consider those different stages that the customer goes through: the awareness, the consideration, the decision making, and that buying button, and then the retention, and then how you're going to do that.